Before securing his position in the administration, he was taken by a young outlaw and held for 50 days as a makeshift bride. After his appointment, he led the federal agents to the compound. With the topographical intel he provided, the outlaw's defenses were swiftly dismantled. The second-in-command, Leo, led the remaining members in accepting the government's terms of amnesty. But the leader, the one Julian had been married to, shot him a look of pure loathing before vanishing into the wilderness. The next time Julian saw him, he was standing beside the president, dressed in a tailored suit, revealed as the long-lost third son. Julian felt hopelessly cornered. During the convoy, both he and his fiancée had been ambushed and dragged to the remote compound. He knew he couldn't fight his way out, so he softened his voice, addressing the young outlaw leader. He explained that he was a man, a bearer. The handsome leader, Cody, just furrowed his brow, asking what a bearer was. It's a man who can carry a child for another man. Under Tiffany's contemptuous gaze, Julian pushed on, explaining that it was no surprise the leader hadn't heard of it. The term, he admitted, was a fiction he had created for the pulpy web novels he wrote to make ends meet. He was the third son, born out of wedlock, and constantly tormented by his half-brothers. His only escape was writing, channeling his resentment onto the screen. His brutish eldest brother became the devoted bearer of a rugged lumberjack. His sophisticated, cruel second brother was the bearer of a charismatic CEO. His wild youngest brother was the bearer of a stoic, obsessive security guard. Those stories had found an unexpectedly fervent audience, mostly among young women. Cody seemed intrigued by this revelation. He wondered why, if Julian could have children for men, he was marrying a woman. Unexpectedly, Julian began to cry. He explained that bearers were seen as a lower class. He was already mistreated at home, and if his brothers ever discovered his secret, his life would become unbearable. The marriage was arranged by their parents, a contract he couldn't break. He confessed, his voice thick with a mixture of truth and lies, that he had never even met his fiancée before that day. By the end, the tears were entirely genuine. Cody fumbled to wipe them away, his rough hands rubbing Julian's skin raw. The young leader murmured with a hint of surprise that his skin was so sensitive. Julian didn't dare pull away. When Cody's fingers brushed a ticklish spot by his ear, a laugh escaped him. Cody stared, mesmerized by the sudden shift from tears to laughter. The quiet was broken by Tiffany, who launched into her own tragic story. She was the legitimate daughter of a wealthy family, but her mother had died young and her stepmother treated her cruelly. She already loved someone else, but her family had arranged this marriage to a man from a minor family just to humiliate her. Regaining his composure, Julian pleaded with Cody to keep him and let Tiffany go. She had someone waiting for her, while he had nothing to go back to. Cody considered this. He said he could promise to protect her, to make sure she wasn't harmed, but if Julian wanted him to let her go, he would have to give him a baby first. It wasn't the worst outcome. At least the woman's reputation would be preserved. As for the rest, Julian would have to take it one step at a time. A sobbing Tiffany was led away, while Cody took Julian's hand, leading him toward his quarters. The room wasn't the squalid den Julian had imagined. Flowers bloomed outside the window, and a bowl of fresh fruit sat on a table, filling the air with a clean, crisp scent. By the window, a long, dark wood bench was draped with a silvery wolf pelt. Cody tossed him onto it, and his body sank into the soft, warm fur. Cody's intense gaze made Julian's skin flush with heat. The young leader's voice was a little hoarse as he asked how exactly bearers made babies. Though Cody had a boyish, almost delicate beauty, he was undeniably male. Julian couldn't bring himself to go through with it. Knowing the other boy was clueless about such matters, he pointed to his own cheek and invented a new rule. A kiss every day for 100 days. Cody didn't question it. He immediately leaned in, his lips tracing a path from Julian's brow down to his collarbone, the soft sounds punctuated by a mumbled command. He suggested that if he gave Julian 100 kisses right now, he could have the baby immediately. Julian couldn't help but smile, murmuring that it didn't work like that. 100 days meant 100 days. He thought to himself that in 100 days, he could surely find a way to escape. Cody looked disappointed. He countered with a new offer, 2 kisses a day for 50 days. His calloused hand stroked Julian's neck, the friction sending a shiver through him and raising goosebumps on his skin. Unlike Julian, whose hands were soft save for the slight hardness from years of typing, Cody's calluses were the real deal, earned from drawing bowstrings and handling weapons. Julian immediately conceded. 50 days, he agreed, trying to sound firm. Not a day less. Cody beamed, boasting that his brother Leo's wife took 10 months to have a baby, but his would only take 50 days. He declared he had to go show off. Panic seized Julian. Cody might be naive, but his older brother, who already had a wife, certainly wasn't. If he exposed the lie, Cody's embarrassment would turn to fury, and Julian's life would be forfeit. The young leader was already moving, his body as agile as a swallow. Julian lunged, barely catching the edge of his jacket. Cody turned back, a wide grin on his face, asking why his bride was so reluctant to let him go. He was just going to the next peak over. With his stamina, he could be back in an hour. The mountains they occupied were a series of treacherous ridges, a natural fortress the government had been trying and failing to breach for years. He finished his proud peacock display, only to notice Julian was trembling. Confused, he felt Julian's forehead, checking for a fever, and asked why he was shaking. Julian explained through chattering teeth that he had spent 19 years hiding his nature, terrified that someone would discover his ability and enslave him for it. He begged Cody not to tell anyone else the secret. The plea worked. Cody sat back down beside him, patting his own leanly muscled chest and flashing a set of bright, white teeth as he promised to protect him. Julian felt a flush of heat, blaming it on his guilty conscience. Cody introduced himself, and Julian, out of habit, replied with his full name, Julian Vance. Cody looked confused, saying he'd given 3 names and asked which one to use. Before Julian could correct him, Cody decided he preferred calling him Bride. Julian could only sigh in response. Cody seemed satisfied and leaned in for another kiss. As he pulled back, he hissed in pain. A decorative clasp on Julian's wedding suit had snagged his hair. Julian carefully untangled him, Cody's head resting against his chest, his warm breath seeping through the fabric. For a moment, it felt like holding a warm, young wolf. Once free, Cody playfully stripped off the formal jacket. Julian tensed, expecting something more, but Cody simply took the garment and headed for the door, cheerfully announcing he was going to have Alara make him one just like it, but bigger so they could have a proper ceremony. At first, Cody was cautious, not letting Julian leave the bedroom. But soon he began to treat him like family, no longer hiding anything. Cody was a second-generation outlaw. His father, Arthur, had established the compound and Cody had been born there. His mother died in childbirth, a fact his older brother Leo never let him forget. When Cody turned 16, Arthur gave him his own peak, this very one, Blue Creek Summit. Cody mostly targeted the corrupt wealthy, redistributing their gains, and only rarely took hostages. He admitted that he'd wanted a bride to start a family, and Julian was the first one he'd ever captured. The only other woman on Blue Creek Summit was Alara, his mother's former assistant, who was mute. The rest of the crew were all young men around Cody's age, which was how Julian's secret remained safe for over 2 weeks. They were all curious about his supposed bride, Tiffany. Cody was a man of his word. He had promised not to let anyone touch her, and he kept that promise. Julian visited Tiffany a few times. She was being looked after by Alara, well-fed and comfortable, but she spat at him every time he appeared. She called him a pathetic, shameless coward, saying if she were him, she'd have killed herself by now, and she couldn't believe he had the nerve to show his face. Julian was used to being insulted. People said he had his mother's promiscuous face. At school, classmates would cover their noses and joke about the cheap scent clinging to him. His older brother, when drunk, would mistake him for a prostitute, grabbing his waist and forcing him to drink. For his birthday, his second brother gifted him makeup, making him open it in front of everyone so they could all laugh. His younger brother, after losing money gambling, would trash his study, mocking him for even trying to get an education when he should be doing needlepoint. His passive nature had long since taught him to ignore their malice. But after just 20 days with Cody, 20 days without a single cruel word, he found the insults intolerable. The thought of Cody gave him a surge of borrowed confidence. He retorted that she should think about why she was still safe and sound. All it would take was a whisper in the leader's ear, and her fate would be sealed. Tiffany immediately fell silent. As he was leaving, Alara, who had been quietly sewing a new suit, tugged on his sleeve and pressed a folded handkerchief into his palm. When he was alone, he unfolded it. A single line was written in neat, tiny script. 7 days. Chip convoy. Light security. His heart pounded. This convoy wasn't some local rich man's cargo. It was a shipment of advanced processors for the central government. If they hit it, the authorities would come down on them with full force. There would be no escape. And why was Alara telling him this? That night, Cody returned with a special meal, a vacuum-sealed gourmet venison stew from a town down in the valley. Julian knew they had been low on funds lately, which explained the risky plan to hit the convoy. Cody hadn't eaten yet, but he offered the largest piece of meat to Julian first, saying that a gentleman like him, accustomed to comfort, shouldn't have to suffer in the mountains. Even though his own family wasn't poor, Julian had never been given the best part of any meal. He always got the dry, flavorless cuts. This stew was delicious, the meat tender and juicy, infused with herbs. Cody was always like that. If he had one piece of food, he would give Julian the better half. Life with Cody wasn't a hardship. After they shared the meal, Cody eagerly pulled Julian into a lesson. His father had forbidden him from learning to read, believing that literacy was the beginning of sorrow. That was why Cody hadn't even understood his name at first. But ever since he'd started pestering Julian to teach him, Julian had discovered that Cody was incredibly intelligent, able to recite entire passages of text after hearing them only once. Yet teaching a rebel about ethics and principles felt deeply ironic. Julian sat up straight, took a deep breath, and told Cody directly that they could not hit the convoy in 7 days. Cody didn't understand. With that haul, he argued, Julian could eat well every day. They would have enough money to travel the world if he wanted. Why shouldn't they take it? Julian sighed. He tried to explain that to the government common people were like clothes, easily replaced. But the government's prestige, its core technology, was like its skin. You couldn't let anyone touch it. Hitting that convoy was like trying to flay the government alive. They would hunt them down relentlessly. Cody just smirked, full of youthful arrogance. He wasn't afraid of those federal dogs. He just wanted his bride and his brothers to live well. He wrapped an arm around Julian's neck, nuzzling his cheek like a puppy. He told Julian not to worry, that the feds had tried to raid them before and always left empty-handed. This time would be no different. Cody still didn't grasp the severity. Julian said no more. 6 days later, Cody held a feast to rally his men. Everyone from the compound gathered, and even Tiffany was brought out. Julian did only one thing. He drugged their drinks. On the platform, Cody gave a rousing speech, impressively weaving in the classical allusions Julian had taught him. It was a powerful, moving address. Julian watched from below as Cody raised his glass, drank it down in one gulp, and smashed it on the ground. The rest of the men followed suit, a cascade of shattering glass. No one abstained. Soon, the drug took effect and they collapsed in heaps. The only ones left standing were Julian, Alara, and Tiffany. Alara seemed unfazed, continuing to stitch the nearly finished wedding suit under the lantern light. Julian bowed to her, then grabbed Tiffany and headed for the exit. At the compound gate, he handed her a pack. This path led straight down the mountain. If anyone asked about him, she was to say he was dead. Tiffany stared at him. She asked if he was crazy, why he wasn't taking this perfect chance to escape. Seeing him just stand there with a bitter smile, she grabbed his collar and started pulling him along. She demanded to know what he thought they would do to him when his lies were exposed. Her sharp words were a splash of cold water. He was right. Cody was only good to him because of a lie. Seeing him hesitate, Tiffany kept pulling him, panting as they ran. She added that no one would want a woman who had been married and then kidnapped by outlaws. He was the only one who wouldn't judge her, and in return, she wouldn't judge him for being a bearer. They could make a life together. His old, weak-willed nature resurfaced. He let himself be dragged along by Tiffany's tirade until they reached the base of the mountain. But a flicker of firelight up ahead made them halt. As they crept closer, they heard voices. Someone complained that it was almost time, asking where the leader's people were and wondering if he'd chickened out. Another voice ordered a few men to head up the mountain and see what was going on. Hearing this, Tiffany stumbled, snapping a dry twig underfoot. The sound echoed in the night. The men reacted instantly, shouting, "Who's there?" From the woods behind them, a voice called out, "It's me, Big Brother." It was Cody. Julian's mind went blank. Cody emerged from the trees, walking past them as if they were invisible. Leo asked irritably where his men were. Cody paused, then his voice, now strained with emotion, explained that the bride he'd taken had told him not to hit the convoy. When he refused, she drugged the drinks. But she had also once told him that drinking dulled the senses, so he had switched his drink to water. He was the only one not unconscious. His voice broke as he added that he hadn't listened, and now she had left him. The other outlaws erupted in laughter. Leo clapped him on the shoulder, telling him that Bride was no good and he'd find him a better one. He told him to stop crying like a child and focus on the mission. Cody followed the group away, never once looking back. He was letting him go. Julian felt a hollow ache in his chest, a feeling so sharp he thought he might shatter. Tiffany was quiet now. Once the firelight had faded into the distance, she pulled him away from Blue Creek summit. They went north. Julian and Tiffany headed south. "Hey, snap out of it." Tiffany dropped a bag in his lap as he stared at the distant green mountains across the river. After returning from the summit, he had thrown himself into his studies, ignoring the taunts of his brothers with unshakable focus. Now he was heading north to the capital for the final civil service examinations. Tiffany reminded him to do well. If he passed and became a top official, he shouldn't let himself get snatched up by some senator's daughter. He had a fiancée back home. Their first attempt at marriage had failed, and his family wasn't about to pay for a second wedding. So Tiffany was still not officially his wife. He had offered to release her from the engagement so she could be with the man she loved, but she said her love had mysteriously disappeared. She didn't mind if Julian didn't love her. Being the wife of a high-ranking official was enough. She had also become his fierce defender, eviscerating his condescending siblings and their spouses. She'd seen real treasure, she'd tell them, while they'd seen nothing. She'd been around men who had killed, while they were suited for nothing more than being piles of dog crap. Her fiancé had passed the bar at 18, while they needed cheat sheets to recite nursery rhymes. Her verbal assaults had silenced their open mockery. He knew they whispered behind his back, calling them both damaged goods, tainted by outlaws. If Tiffany tried to marry someone else, her life would be difficult. So they remained in this limbo. The riverboat heading north was crowded with all sorts of people. A traveling salesman, a teenager searching for family, a know-it-all historian, a grim-faced mercenary, and a woman who had just left her husband. They talked about the outlaws on the overland routes, agreeing that the river was the only safe way to travel these days. Someone remarked on how formidable the outlaws were, having recently hijacked a government shipment of advanced tech from the south. The government was reportedly furious but powerless. The grim mercenary, who had been silently cleaning his weapon, finally spoke. The government had executed his entire family. He was on his way to join the outlaws. The other passengers immediately shuffled away from him. Only Julian moved closer. He asked which group the man planned to join. The mercenary refused to speak with a government dog. Julian clarified that he wasn't an official yet, but would be. The man sneered, saying the government was a cesspool. No matter how clean you were going in, you came out stained. He suggested Julian join him instead, saying he could be a strategist for the outlaws, a better life than being a bureaucrat. He'd heard that the most powerful group now was led by two brothers, Arthur's sons. The younger one, Cody, was said to be a brilliant tactician, both feared and respected. Hearing Cody's name again after all these months was jarring. Julian remembered him on that platform, rallying his men. He was still young, but he already had the presence of a revolutionary leader. Julian knew he was smart, but he hadn't realized how quickly he was growing, how much he had changed. The broken-hearted boy in the woods seemed like a different person. He couldn't imagine what it would be like to meet again. He politely declined the mercenary's offer, stating his commitment to serving the government. The man just grunted, calling him stubborn, just like the administration he wanted to join, and closed his eyes again. Julian asked for his name, promising that if he was ever in a position to help, he would seek justice for the man's family. After a long silence, just as Julian thought he wouldn't answer, the man spoke a single name, Donovan. The name caused a stir among the passengers. The Donovans were a famous military family, heroes who had helped found the current government before retiring from public life. To hear their descendants had met such a tragic end was shocking. In February, he reached the capital. During the security check at the city gates, he saw wanted posters on the wall. Cody's face was front and center, though the sketch was a caricature, making the handsome youth look like a vicious brute. If his name hadn't been printed below, Julian would never have recognized him. He clutched his bag tighter and followed the crowd into the bustling metropolis. The capital showed no signs of the famines and unrest that plagued the outer territories. It was a city of vibrant colors and smiling faces, an illusion of prosperity. At the boarding house, other exam candidates were busy discussing which officials to bribe for favor. Julian's pockets were empty. He had no money for such introductions and resigned himself to failure. To his astonishment, he not only passed the written exam but excelled in the final interview, earning the top position, personally selected by the president. He couldn't understand why until the president himself explained it at the official reception. The president, a surprisingly young man who had taken office in his teens, smiled and called him by his first name. He asked Julian if he knew why he had been chosen. Julian, bewildered, shook his head. It was because of his writing, the president explained with a playful glint in his eye. The president had been a huge fan of the web novels Julian used to write. If the publisher hadn't used Julian's distinct handwriting as a font for the ebooks, he would never have recognized it on the exam papers. Julian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The other new appointees looked at him with a mix of contempt, envy, and grudging admiration. The second-place candidate, a man with a practiced smile, was the first to toast him, remarking that Julian would have to be sure to thank his publisher. The third-place candidate quoted a classic poem about a wife asking if her makeup was fashionable, a veiled jab at Julian's supposed methods of gaining favor. An undercurrent of suggestive laughter went through the room. The capital was certainly a sophisticated place. Even its insults were layered. After the reception, the president assigned Julian to a prestigious think tank with an additional private task: to write a story about a young, charismatic president who seduces his stern, older political advisor. The detail that stuck with Julian was that the advisor's last name was Arthur. His mind kept wandering as he worked, and he accidentally overheard the senior advisors discussing their strategy for dealing with the outlaws. With the president's birthday approaching, major tribute shipments were due, and they had to prevent another hijacking. This time, they needed to eliminate the threat completely. The problem was that the government forces were weaker than the outlaws. An old, respected advisor with a prominent mustache stroked his beard and declared that the bandits relied on their defensible mountain terrain. If they could be lured out, they would be easy to capture. The question was how to lure them out. The advisor's mustache twitched with pride as he announced the plan. Burn down the forest. The pen slipped from Julian's hand, leaving a large black blot on the document. Amidst the chorus of praise for the old man's brilliance, the small sound was glaringly out of place. The advisors frowned in his direction. The mustached man looked particularly annoyed and asked if Julian had a better idea. Julian carefully chose his words. While the method would be effective, he began, and while he was sure the honorable advisor was willing to sacrifice his historical reputation for the president's sake. Starting a massive forest fire right before the president's birthday might be seen as a bad omen. He suggested he had a more efficient solution. The advisor, not keen on being remembered as an arsonist, conceded the point and asked for his alternative. Amnesty, Julian said. He took a fresh sheet of paper and began to sketch a map of Blue Creek Summit from memory. He argued for a strategy of capturing the leader. If they could get Cody to surrender, the rest of the outlaws would lose their morale and fall apart. The advisor studied the map. He noted that Julian seemed quite familiar with the layout and asked if he'd been one of them. Julian closed his eyes, feigning a look of humiliation. He explained that he and his fiancée had once been taken captive there, forced to serve the outlaws. The senior officials scrutinized him before nodding in agreement. After some discussion, they decided his plan was viable and tasked him with carrying it out. Julian knew that the fire was still their backup plan, a contingency for his failure. The pressure was immense. He traveled by armored vehicle to the base of Blue Creek Summit but didn't go up immediately. The federal agents assigned to him were lazy and out of shape. Even with a map, they were no match for Cody's men. He spent several days drilling them and speaking to locals, gathering information about the reasons the various outlaw leaders had taken up their cause. Leo, on the neighboring peak, was devoted to his wife. Convincing her would be the key to convincing him. Their strategist wanted a government position. That could be arranged. The security chief's ancestral land had been seized. It could be returned. Donovan, who had surprisingly risen to become the second in command, was a loyalist at heart. Clearing his family's name would be enough. As he analyzed them one by one, he was struck by their tragic circumstances. He compiled this information into a report and sent it back to the capital. A few days later, the president's reply came. As long as they surrendered, all conditions would be met. Only when he was certain everything was in place did he nervously make his way up the mountain. The negotiation was surprisingly smooth, mainly because Cody wasn't there. He had reportedly gone to care for his ailing father. After Julian's agents secured the strategic points, Leo and Donovan came out to negotiate. Leo's first child with his wife had been lost during a flight from authorities, and he no longer wanted his family to live a life on the run. He and his men accepted the amnesty. Donovan, upon hearing that his family's honor would be restored, thought it over for one night before kneeling in tearful gratitude. By the time Cody galloped back to Blue Creek Summit, he was met with the sight of his brothers-in-arms packing their belongings, their eyes downcast, unable to meet his gaze. Donovan stood calmly and told his leader to surrender. Cody's eyes blazed with fury, his gaze locking onto Julian. Then he froze. The first time they met, Julian had been in a wedding suit. This time, he wore the crisp uniform of a federal official. Cody sat atop a magnificent black horse with white stockings, his own bearing transformed. The softness was gone, replaced by a cold, dangerous beauty. He was dressed in simple white, a white band tied around his forehead. Leo saw the mourning attire and understood, collapsing to the ground with a gut-wrenching cry for their father. Overwhelmed by grief, Cody tried to speak but no sound came out. He bit his lip, his eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and defiance. The agents around Julian saw the intense stare and drew their weapons, the tension palpable. Cody raised his arm high and brought his riding crop down hard on his horse's flank. The animal surged forward directly at Julian. Julian ordered his men to stand down but couldn't bear to watch, shutting his eyes and bracing for the impact. The thundering hooves grew louder. His own horse shifted nervously, sensing the powerful animal approaching. With a spray of dust and gravel, Cody was upon him. He grabbed Julian's collar and lifted him from his saddle as if he were a root vegetable, dropping him onto the horse in front of him. It was just like the first time, another abduction. Chaos erupted behind them. Julian pushed himself up and heard the mutilera's voice, clear and steady, telling the others not to worry, that the leader would not harm their official. The horse bolted, wind screaming past Julian's ears. His shoulder grew damp. He realized Cody's eyes were red, huge tears falling onto him, each one feeling as heavy as lead. Cody's voice was a raw whisper. "Julian, I hate you." Julian had no words of comfort. He knew that in that moment, Cody's 18 years of simple belief had been utterly shattered. His father was dead, his home was gone, and the one person he had trusted had deceived and betrayed him. Julian saw the sword at Cody's hip. He reached for it, drew the blade, and held it to his own throat. He asked if killing him would make it better. Cody watched, his face a mask of indifference, until a line of blood appeared on Julian's skin. The act broke. Cody slapped his arm, the force making it go numb, and snatched the sword, tossing it carelessly to the side of the road. He grabbed Julian's face and crashed his lips against his, a brutal, punishing kiss. The taste of blood filled Julian's mouth. This newly matured wolf was wild with grief, seeking solace in the raw taste of flesh and pain. Julian slowly wrapped his arms around him, patting his back. Cody was bigger now, more solid, and gradually, he calmed in Julian's embrace. The scent of blood from Julian's neck seemed to draw him in. He sniffed at the air, then his tongue darted out, licking the thin wound. Julian ran his fingers through Cody's hair, trying to soothe him. He asked about the terms of the amnesty. Government positions or land grants, he explained. After a period of surveillance, they would be granted full citizenship. Cody shook his head, stating he wanted nothing to do with the government. He looked at Julian, his voice pleading and sorrowful. "Don't take the job. Come with me, please." It was a look that was hard to refuse. Yet for the first time in his life, Julian heard himself say no. He looked down, explaining that he had goals, that he wanted to be a good public servant. He gently pushed Cody away, his voice barely audible. And besides, he had promised Tiffany he would make her an official's wife. Cody laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "Selling yourself to that dog of a president? He has a well-known taste for beautiful young men, you know. How can you be a good official without an honest leader? With what will you do good, Mr. Vance? That pretty face? Or that pretty body?" Cody had learned cruelty. His hand slid to Julian's waist, a possessive grip that made him go weak. The insult ignited something in Julian, and he slapped him. Cody's head snapped to the side, a red handprint blooming on his cheek. The shock seemed to sober him. "Fine," he said quietly. "You want to be a good official. I'll help you. Tiffany wants to be an official's wife. I'll help her. But you are not to marry her." He shoved Julian off the horse. "I hope, Mr. Vance, that you can learn to say no to the snakes in the government as easily as you just said it to me." The white-stocking black horse kicked up a cloud of dust and disappeared into the mountains. Julian couldn't decipher Cody's intentions, but he had a very bad feeling. Back in the capital, his premonition proved correct. He had solved a major national security threat, and his reward was a barrage of official censure. The administration, to make the amnesty deal look like a major victory, promoted him 2 ranks, an unprecedented honor for a new appointee. But as soon as the ink was dry, those who had been secretly resentful immediately attacked him for letting the lead outlaw escape. An official named Harrison claimed that many had witnessed Mr. Vance exchanging meaningful glances and private words with the outlaw leader. Julian retorted, asking Mr. Harrison how he could possibly know what was said in a private exchange. Harrison insisted the glances were undeniable. Julian stared at him for a long moment and said that by his logic, they were now exchanging meaningful glances, so was Harrison now his accomplice? Harrison turned beet red. Others came forward to accuse him, and Julian showed them the scar on his neck, telling a dramatic tale of his near-death escape. The president watched the spectacle from his chair like it was theater, just short of eating popcorn. He finally yawned, cleared his throat, and declared that he was tired and they would adjourn. They could continue the performance for him tomorrow. As they filed out, the second-place candidate from his year casually remarked to Harrison and the others that everyone knew Mr. Vance was writing a private novel for the president and was currently in high favor. Letting one outlaw escape was nothing. As long as he kept the president happy, Julian could probably empty the federal prisons and the president would look the other way. The contempt in their eyes deepened. All Julian could do was sigh. It was hard to survive in the complex, factionalized world of the capital without a powerful ally. There was one upside to being a pariah. The ambitious political families who had been circling, hoping to marry off their daughters, had all backed off. Cody would be pleased about that, at least. Cody. Why was he thinking about him again? He'd said he would help him be a good official. But he wasn't in the government. How could he help? Was he planning to start an outright rebellion? A jolt of panic shot through Julian. He sat bolt upright in bed. The next day in the chamber, his arguments were weak, his focus shattered by a night of wild speculation. But the president was sleeping in, so the session was being run by his chief of staff, and Harrison's faction wasn't pressing their attack. Then the president arrived, and everyone snapped to attention. Julian knelt, noticing an extra pair of expensive shoes next to the president. He couldn't believe it. The president had brought one of his lovers to a government session. When they were told to rise, Julian's jaw almost hit the floor. The man wore a brand new, impeccably tailored suit, and he had an aura of authority that outshone the president himself. Cody? What are you doing here? Harrison was equally stunned, exclaiming that the president had managed to capture the outlaw leader himself. A true show of strength. The president looked annoyed. What outlaw leader? This is my son, lost for many years. By age, he is the third in line. That is all. This matter is not to be discussed further. Mr. Vance has performed a great service and is promoted another rank. Meeting adjourned. The sudden appearance of the third son, Cody Arthur, shattered the political balance. And because of the previous accusations of meaningful glances and private words, Julian was instantly branded as the first and foremost member of the third son's faction. After the session, Cody caught up with him. Julian couldn't help but hiss at him under his breath, asking if he had a death wish, pulling a stunt like this. Cody's voice was low and mournful. You yourself don't believe bearers are real, do you? Julian felt a pang of guilt and said nothing. Before my father died, Cody continued, he told me he was one. That I wasn't born of my mother, but of him. He was the president's advisor back then. The president forced himself on him, and he got pregnant with me. He couldn't accept it, so he ran. My mother was pregnant with Leo at the time. After I was born, she couldn't accept it either, and she left him. Alara stayed, but she knew the truth. That's why she never spoke. Julian pinched the back of his hand. It hurt. This wasn't a dream. Cody suddenly leaned in close, sniffing at his neck. Julian immediately pushed him away, reminding him they were in public. Cody explained that his father had told him all bearers have a unique scent. You have it too, he said. Julian felt his face burn. He asked gruffly what his point was. Cody looked wounded. You promised you'd have a baby for me. He leaned closer, his lips brushing Julian's ear. I promised I'd become president so you could be a good official. You can't forget your promise to me. The words, whispered so close, sent a tingling sensation down Julian's entire side. Cody didn't live in the official residence. He showed up at Julian's house late at night, holding him in a suffocating embrace. Annoyed at being woken up, Julian bit his wrist. Cody whimpered. He complained about the poison needles in his bed, the toxic chemicals in his water pitcher, and the staff assigned to him who had tried to strangle him. In the bright moonlight, he tilted his chin up, showing Julian the alarming bruises on his neck. It was his first day, he said, and they already wanted him dead. Cody's sudden appearance had disrupted the line of succession for the other sons. Of course, they would try to eliminate him before he could establish a foothold. Julian started to analyze the political situation for him, but Cody didn't seem to be listening. He was nuzzling Julian's neck again, like a wildcat with catnip. Just as Julian was about to get angry, Cody said something that stopped him cold. So cold in that place. I'm glad I have you. Julian froze. The words were exactly what he had been thinking about Cody. Cody, who hated the corrupt world of the capital because of what was done to his father, had thrown himself into the heart of it because Julian wouldn't leave. A wave of tenderness washed over him. He wanted to say something, but he realized Cody's breathing had evened out. He was asleep. Still just a kid, really. A teen, not even an adult. Julian knew that many people in the capital would not be sleeping that night. When they finally processed what had happened, the dangers he and Cody would face would be far greater than what they had seen today. The next day, the ministers began questioning the legitimacy of Cody's bloodline. One argued that the third son's birth mother should be located and brought into the president's household, as a reward for bearing a presidential heir. The president, surprisingly, was prepared. He announced that he had already drafted an executive order posthumously recognizing Arthur as his official consort. He was the only person he had ever truly loved, he declared, and he would not have his child delegitimized. The current First Lady had no children, which made Cody the legitimate heir apparent. The faces of the First Lady's political allies turned green. They pleaded with the president to reconsider. The president scoffed, saying he had spent the entire night reconsidering and had only become more certain of his deep affection for his late consort. They all knew that lost things were treasured most. No one dared to challenge him on the matter of Arthur again. Another minister tried a different angle. The third son had been raised in the wilderness without a proper traditional education. He might harbor rebellious ideas. This enraged the president even more. He slammed his hand on his desk, reminding them that his own education had come from Arthur. How dare they question the upbringing of a child from that family? In reality, Arthur had barely taught Cody anything. His current eloquence was the result of his own voracious self-study. The president, losing patience, asked if anyone else had anything to say. His favoritism was so blatant that no one else dared to speak up. After the session, the president kept Julian and Cody behind. He sat on his great chair, looking suddenly exhausted. With the hall empty, his voice echoed. He told them that when he took office at 12, everyone had tried to control him. Only advisor Arthur had genuinely cared for him. Seeing Cody and Julian, their bond of friendship and mentorship, reminded him of his time with Arthur. But this government, he sighed, had no room for a leader with his own mind. He had tried for years, but he had failed and watched the country decline. It was a rare moment of sincerity from the president. He turned to Cody. Over the years, I have sent many good people, many honest officials to posts far from the capital. If you are serious about making a change, you should go talk to them. He handed Cody a small, encrypted data drive. Cody took it, his expression a mixture of complex emotions. The president seemed pleased and stood to leave. I'll handle things in the capital, he said. But the road ahead, you'll have to walk it yourself. Cody remained in the capital and enrolled in the top university. His half-brothers constantly harassed him. Their worst attempt was luring him to a private party, drugging him and trying to frame him for assaulting a senator's wife. The tactic was dirty but effective. The president feigned outrage, stripping Cody of his official titles and exiling him from the capital. When Julian heard the news, he resigned his post and left with him. As their two horses trotted side by side out of the city gates, Cody turned to him. You wouldn't leave with me before. Why now? Julian looked down at his horse's mane, not saying a word. Cody sighed softly. You're a clever one, Mr. Vance. You figured it out, didn't you? That data drive the president gave me. It's a list of his loyalists. He wants me to start a revolution. This place is rotten to the core. It has to be torn down from the outside. By resigning and joining me, you'll be one of the key figures when it's rebuilt. It was indeed the thought Julian hadn't dared to voice. But that's not all, he said, his voice quiet. Cody heard him anyway, his face breaking into a wide grin. What else? He asked eagerly. Our promise. When Cody finally heard him acknowledge their promises, he was so happy he whooped and spurred his horse into a gallop, racing a mile down the road before circling back, circling Julian like an excited puppy. I like you so much, he said, his eyes shining. He reached out a hand, and Julian took it, their fingers slowly lacing together. Me too, Julian said. Cody possessed both officially recognized legitimacy and widespread grassroots support. They traveled across the country, visiting every person on the list. Their movement grew at an astonishing rate. The administration, panicking, sent forces to quell the rebellion, but their troops were either defeated or defected to Cody's side. The defectors told stories of a president who seemed to have gone mad, jailing trusted old advisors for disagreeing with him, and having his own sons imprisoned or exiled for their bitter infighting. The contrast between the chaos in the capital and the hope surrounding Cody made him the clear choice of the people. The following spring, Cody's army marched into the capital. They met no resistance, taking control of the government bloodlessly. The old president signed the transfer of power and retired to a secluded wing of the residence to live out his days. Cody still harbored resentment for what he had done to Arthur and rarely visited him. They wanted to bring Alara to the capital to care for her, but having escaped that gilded cage once, she had no desire to return. She sent them the 2 wedding suits she had finished sewing all those years ago and then disappeared. No one knew where she went. In the 3rd year, with the government stabilized, they reopened the civil service examinations. Cody had them bring Tiffany to the capital and showed her the list of candidates. By a stroke of fate, the man she had loved, the one who had disappeared, was on it. It turned out he hadn't abandoned her. When he heard she'd been taken by outlaws, he had gone into the mountains to find her, but had fallen and suffered a head injury that caused amnesia. Watching the 2 lovers reunite, Julian felt a quiet happiness for them. Tiffany came to thank him privately and shared news from his old home. In the years since he'd left, a lot had changed. His eldest brother got into a drunken fight with a logger and was soundly beaten. His wife, tired of his behavior, had divorced him. His second brother, hearing Julian had become a top official, had come to the capital to seek his favor, got mixed up with one of the other presidential sons in a power play, and was exiled along with him by the former president. His youngest brother's gambling addiction had finally ruined him. The family disowned him and sold him to a casino owner to cover his debts. His fate was unknown. Tiffany smiled. I knew it, she said. Good people get good rewards and bad people get what they deserve. You and the president are good people. You'll be happy. One afternoon, Cody was complaining about his poor handwriting and asked Julian for a lesson. An aide suddenly entered to report that the former president had been found dead at his desk, clutching a book. The aide kept glancing nervously at Julian. Cody's expression was placid as he calmly continued practicing his characters. What book was it? He asked. The aide stammered the title. The tyrant CEO and his reluctant advisor. He flees, he pursues, he cannot escape. It was one of Julian's old web novels. The former president had stayed in character to the very end. Cody glanced at Julian. Such minor details are not to be included in the official histories, he instructed. Anything else? The aide added that the former president's last request was to be interred in the presidential mausoleum alongside Arthur. Cody shook his head. Bury him according to standard protocol. Nothing more is to be asked of me. The aide bowed and scurried out. After the aide left, Cody's composure crumbled. He buried his face in Julian's chest and sobbed. He loved my father so much, but I never even told him where he was buried. Zichu, did I do the wrong thing? Julian stroked his hair, comforting him. What the former president felt wasn't love. If you were him, would you have done to me what he did to your father? Cody's voice was muffled. I don't know. Julian answered for him, his voice firm. You would let me go free, just like you did at the bottom of Blue Creek Summit. At this, Cody cried even harder, clinging to him as if terrified he would leave. But you won't leave, will you? He pleaded. No, I'm not going anywhere, Julian soothed. I still have to deliver on that baby I promised someone. You can't leave even after the baby is born. All right, Julian murmured, holding him tight. I won't leave.